Do you struggle with telling your care provider no? Maybe you want to decline an induction or a medical test or an exam. Maybe there's a common practice that's being done in the hospital or even that your midwife says has to be done as part of routine. Maybe it's just that you want to tell your mother-in-law no. Well, the thing is that we have been programmed not to say no. And today in the Empowered Birth series, I'm going to be talking about this. As you know, the Empowered Birth series is all about going deep into everything that you need to know to plan and get your empowered true natural birth. And if you've been following along with this series, then you also know I've been going into the 26 things that you need to know if this is your first time planning a true natural birth. Now, before we get started, I'm just going to let you also know that the empowered birth method is different from a lot of what you've typically been taught about having a natural birth. You can learn more if you go to my website, empoweringmomsbirth.com/start guide, and that will give you a brief overview of what true natural birth is versus what natural birth is perpetuated by our birth culture and medical system. Because the truth is that natural birth is in danger. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so basically, when you're saying no to your care provider, you're going against a status quo that has been in place even before you were born, even before your mother was born. And by saying no, you're actually shifting a balance of power that has been basically in the idea of the medical system knows everything and you know nothing. And that can be really challenging because as women and as people who are birthing, we have been conditioned not to say no. After all, the doctor's the expert, right? If they're recommending that test or that routine intervention, or they're saying that you have to go into labor by a certain point, or that you have to birth in the hospital, or you have to have a C-section, or you have to have vaginal exams, whatever it is, it's very difficult to change their mind. Not impossible, however, it is difficult. And it doesn't matter how much evidence that you have gathered that says that what you want is okay. No amount of evidence is going to change the mind of someone who is still culturally indoctrinated and stuck in their fear. Now, I do have something called the Birth Advocacy Report, and it's inside the Empowered Birth Toolkit. You can learn more about that again if you go to empoweringmomsbirth.com/start guide, particularly if you also want to click on the button that says go to the toolkit. You'll learn more about that Birth Advocacy Report. But the short version of this is that your care provider is afraid. And they haven't seen true natural birth. They don't know how to support true natural birth. And no amount of evidence that you pull out from Google or even from their own guidelines is going to convince them to do things your way, especially if they're a Category 5, which you can again read about inside of that Birth Advocacy Report, or go watch some of my other videos on finding the right care provider, which will tell you more about what you want to look for when choosing to have a natural birth, because not every single care provider is going to support that. Not every midwife is going to support it properly. Not every OB is going to support it properly. Not every nurse and not every doula is going to know how to support your true natural birth. So a lot of what I teach my clients with the empowered birth method is to have that confidence to say no. Because when you're able to say no with confidence, this is when the balance of power shifts in your favor. Until you can say the words no to your care provider, they are still in control. And if they're in control, they can get you to say yes to some things that are compromising on your birth plan, which then basically leads you into the cascade of interventions. It may seem like not a big deal to say yes to a vaginal exam upon admission in the hospital. However, then that sets the precedent where they can start to slowly chip away at your confidence. And I had the same thing happen to me. Let me just tell you a very quick story about what happens when you cannot confidently say no. So One of the things that I was dealing with in the pregnancy of my second baby was that I did not want to have any vaginal exams. I had been quite clear on that. Unfortunately, I was also very stressed out. I was not going with the flow of my own body. I was still kind of having some doubts in the background, and I had a lot of stop and start labor. I knew from being a birth advocate and being in the birth community and having friends that were doulas that having a vaginal exam would not actually tell me when I would go into labor or whether labor would progress, and it wouldn't really make any big difference except it would put me on a clock. I knew this. I knew that there was actually no benefit to having a vaginal exam just to check for dilation. However, at the same time, this stop and start labor had started to get to me. Now, you can go back and check out some of my other videos, or you can even read inside of my book, Your Empowered Birth, for the whole story. But the idea of chipping away at your confidence and undermining it and not being able to have the tools, which I needed to develop, and I did a whole process on it and have taught my clients this now, it's very difficult, even for somebody who has all of the knowledge, all of the information. So I was in my labor and I decided to call the midwife to the house. And the midwife had been basically newly certified. She'd only been in for a couple of years. I knew that legally, from the standpoint of the medical system where we were, that she would get in trouble if she did not assess my progress. And I was also really, really curious. I was so done with pregnancy by that point. I'm like, I just want to know where I'm at. So I agreed to one vaginal exam. And what happened is she's like, you're 4 centimeters. Yes, I can stay. So by doing that, though, this then opened the door for more vaginal exams. And for the first 4 hours as I was laboring, she's like, okay, I'm not going to bug you. But then things were not picking up. And she's like, I'd like to check you again. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to be checked again. I don't want to be checked. I don't see any point of it. But then another 4 hours went by, and it was close to midnight by that point, and I was really not progressing. The midwife and the doula had pulled me from the pool because they thought that my labor was slowing down, and they were trying to get me to do all these different positions and lunges and try to get the baby in a better position to get things moving along. This is why I say if you're trying to do all of the things, labor can stall. Because guess what happened when I was getting up and moving around instead of resting like my body wanted me to do? Labor stalled. And it had now been 8 hours since my last vaginal exam. And the midwife was like, I need to check you again. And I was so worn down by this point because she had kept asking. And I didn't know how to confidently say no or even send her home because I thought she needed to be there. This is again why the empowered birth method is so powerful, because if you believe that you can do it yourself, then you are less likely to rely on the outside. And if you are less likely to rely on the outside, then when you are confidently saying no, you are doing so with the idea of if they don't like it, that's on them. I'm not going to allow their fear to get projected onto me. And then what's going to happen is that either they say, well, if you don't do this, we're not going to support XYZ. And you say, okay, bye, Felicia. And they're gone. Or what happens is you're confident enough to keep saying no, even with that external pressure. Or they're like, well, I legally can't stay with you right now because things are not at the level that allows me to stay with you, like in the terms of the midwife, to send her home. Now, of course, you know from the story of Your Empowered Birth, again, if you haven't read it, you can always go and check it out. I do have the book on Amazon. You can also just go into the book playlist and listen to it. It's in chapter 3, which is a harsh lesson. And then chapter 4 is reclaiming birth. So recognizing the difference between when I thought that I couldn't be without a midwife to the second time when I realized, oh, if I call the midwife back, she is bound by these policies, and then that affects my labor because I've allowed for this to happen. So, as you know, I also stalled out. I had a 16-hour, like nothing was happening. And I didn't call the midwife back until I was actively pushing. And then I had my home birth. But at one point, if I had kept the midwife there, she would have kept pushing those vaginal exams and I would not have progressed. And she would have had to transfer my care to the hospital, to the obstetrician that would be overseeing it. They would have wanted to break my waters. And my midwife had told me this. They wanted to break my waters and get things going because according to them, my labor was a problem because I wasn't progressing. So by even just saying yes to something very, very innocuous at the time, this can then open the door for more intervention, more stress, and having to say no to bigger and bigger things. So you want to be able to say no and have your plan laid out. And I'm going to show you how to do that inside of this masterclass. As a reminder, though, if you're doing the do-it-yourself route for Empowered Birth and you are not going to get your Empowered Birth Academy or work with me in premium coaching, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to subscribe to the newsletter because it will give you the additional insights and what Empowered Birth can do for your motherhood because these tools are transferable, as well as you're going to want to be following these deep dive masterclasses. Take notes as you are watching this. This is not a passive video. So I know there's a lot of stuff out there that's very fluffy and it just tells you a nice positive story. And then it goes on to be like, oh, if you want to know the real thing, buy my course. I'm going to tell you right now that is not what these deep dive masterclasses are. You are going to get the story. You are going to get examples from both my clients and from myself and what I've even read from other people who have supported moms through true natural birth, because I sample from everything and I bring those stories to you. And I bring in experts to talk about these things inside of the Empowered Mom Hour. And then I draw from all of that experience and I put it into these masterclasses. So what you're really getting here is a masterclass. You are going to learn something. You are going to learn how to confidently say no. And if you want the deeper dive, you can always go and get your Empowered Birth Academy, which is my program that gives you the access to everything that you need to know to plan and get your empowered true natural birth, just like my clients have gotten when I've worked with them anywhere from 3 months, 6 months, a year, and even just 6 weeks to be able to turn this around so that they could have their true natural births and reclaim their power in their birth so that the medical system can't control them. And any medical intervention that they choose to bring in is their choice, not because they were pressured into it. So when you recognize that the empowered birth method is all about aiming for a true natural birth and then pulling back as needed, this is where confidently saying no is helpful. So the first thing, of course, you need to do is have your birth vision. And if you do not have the birth vision template, I encourage you to email my team, hello@empoweringmomsbirth.com. We'll give it to you. Sometimes it's inside the Empowered Birth Toolkit. It's always inside your Empowered Birth Workshop, which is our lower level program, and your Empowered Birth Academy, which encompasses everything. So you can get it that way. But if you just wanted the template, then you can just email us, hello@empoweringmomsbirth.com, and we'll give it to you. The idea here is you create your birth vision of how you want your pregnancy to go, how you want your experience to be, and you also draw your hard lines in the sand. There's also a decision-making framework that you can also pick up when you go to get the Empowered Birth Toolkit. It's sometimes in there. And again, it's also in your Empowered Birth Academy and email. I reward action takers. If you email me, I will respond, or someone on my team will respond to you within 3 to 5 business days. We don't work on Fridays. I just want to be clear on that. However, within 3 to 5 business days, you will get your report, you will get your workbook, whatever you need, because the do-it-yourself path is all about you doing it yourself. Information is free. You only pay for access to me. So if you need access to me outside of just brief email support where we send you another link to another resource, then that is where the services actually come into play. And the reason I do that is specifically because it's so hard already for you to say no to your care provider. If you're not getting information because it's behind a paywall, that doesn't help you. And if somebody has an interest in kind of changing that information or altering that information to get you to do something a certain way because they financially benefit from that, that's not going to help you either. So I am committed to you having an empowered birth, whether you work with me or not. Whether you buy any of my courses, you buy my book, you can go and get all of my information for free. And all I ask is that you pay it forward. Pass this on to other moms, and please do the work. Because it's one thing to watch a video and be like, that was a nice video. I really learned a lot. And it's another to take notes as you're watching. It's another to take the ideas and then be like, okay, what resource could I use? And reach out and get that resource from me and my team. Or what you can also be like, how can I apply this in other areas of my life to practice? Because again, the same skill that I'm going to teach you is going to help you practice. Okay, so step one of confidently saying no, besides knowing that you can say no, is imagining yourself saying no. Think about it this way. When you're under a lot of pressure and somebody is trying to tell you to do something for your own good, and you're just feeling like backed into a corner and you're like, I wish I could just tell this person no. I just wish I could just say no. Well, guess what? You can say no. You are your own best expert. And if you want to say no, you can say no. First of all, you need to understand that a no for now does not mean no forever. You can change your mind. You can say it's a no for now. I'm not doing anything now. A hard line in the sand has not been come up against, and I don't see any reason to change my mind. Think of it like when you're talking to a kid. Like it could be even your kid. If you've already got kids, then you understand this. If you don't have kids, if this is your first baby, then this is something you're going to need to deal with a lot in the future. So say your kid is needing your attention right now. Your child is also of a certain age that they could theoretically get their snack themselves. Okay? They can theoretically get their snack themselves. They are bugging you as you are working on something important, and they're like, Mommy, go get me a snack. And you're like, well, what's the magic words, first of all? And they're like, Mommy, can you please get me a snack? But you're still not obligated to get up from whatever you're doing to get them a snack. Even if you say, sweetheart, Mommy is in the middle of something right now. Could you get yourself a snack? And they throw down and they have a tantrum. Right there. Now, the thing about the tantrum is they're afraid or they're upset because their need isn't being met. But is it really? You have to assess, do I really need to drop this? Or can I let them ride out this temper tantrum and basically empathize? If there's an extenuating circumstance where they are so hungry, so tired, so dysregulated that they could not possibly get themselves a snack at that moment, and you know that getting them the snack is going to actually help them more than holding the boundary, you can change the boundary. Well, the same thing is in birth. If you have absolutely said flat out, I'm not having any vaginal exams, but something comes up in the course of your labor and you're like, it might actually be helpful for me to make a decision if I have more information, and the information needs to be gauged from having this vaginal exam. I need to know where the baby's position is at. I need to know like certain things like how dilated am I? Yeah, you can change your mind. However, you don't want to do it under stress, and you don't want to do it when you don't have the actual evidence or anything that is going to tell you, actually, I didn't need to do that. Because if you make a decision based on fear, then that leads to more decisions based on fear. If you're making a decision from power, like some of my clients have done, where it's like, you know what? I've been in labor for 3 days now. My waters have been released for just as long. And I think I'd like to get labor going. So I'm going to use castor oil. One of my clients had said that to me, and she's like, I know you said that castor oil is a natural birth trap, but I really felt that I needed to get things going. And I also chose to get the epidural because I really wanted to get some rest. And, I need it. And I'm like, you know what? That's okay. You made a decision. Your main goal was avoid a C-section, especially since you had repeat C-sections before. You did not want another C-section. You accomplished that goal. That was the original goal. It wasn't natural birth or bust. It was avoid getting pushed from the medical system into another C-section, and avoid getting pressure from the medical system to induce, or avoid getting pressure from the medical system to have the epidural just because. No, when you make an informed decision and confidently say yes to something, but no to something else, that is a completely different thing than just saying, I'm just going to say no. So the first thing, again, is you want to recognize, what would it be like for me to just take that pressure off? They're telling me I have to induce. What if I just said no? They're telling me I have to have a repeat C-section. What if I just said no? What if I just said no? What would that be like for me to just say no? No, I'm not going to the hospital. No, I'm not changing my birth plan. No, I'm not going to follow that hospital policy that is going to interfere with my physiological birth. No, I'm not getting on the bed. No, I'm not having a C-section just because you say that I'm going too long in labor. No, I'm not having Pitocin. No, I'm not going to allow you to cut the cord before it turns white and limp. And then once you have that vision of you saying no, because you're aiming for everything's going to be okay. That's the idea. Everything is going to be okay. Your no is contingent on, as long as I don't feel like I need to change anything, I am not going to budge on this boundary that I have set. Now, if other information comes in and I need to reassess, my answer might still be no, or I might create another contingency plan. See, when fear comes in, what this does is you start to doubt your no, but your no is still important. Just because other people's stories of, oh, well, I didn't say yes to this, and then this and this and this happened. Okay, yeah, there's a scary story now. There's another possibility that you didn't think about before. That doesn't mean that your no is suddenly invalid. It means you have another fear that you need to work through. And of course, I do have a workbook on how to get past fear. It also comes with a little mini course, which is basically module 1 of your Empowered Birth Workshop. And again, you can go to my website, empoweringmomsbirth.com/start guide, to learn more about the process of the Empowered Birth Method and getting past your fear, and all of our products that we have available for you, all of our resources. Because again, we have 3 paths: do it yourself, self-study, and premium coaching. So depending on where you're at and what your budget is, you can get all of the information you need for free. Use it to be able to have a better conversation with your care provider and with your doula. If you only have enough money to hire a doula, I would much rather you hire a doula than try to spend all of your money on childbirth education. Do not invest in something that you cannot comfortably invest in. Invest at the level that you are actually able to. So, I mean, there's some clients that they will do everything. They will go and they will buy all of the books. They will get all of the courses. They will hire a doula. They will hire a coach, and they will have that empowered birth. But even if you don't have those resources available to do that, that doesn't mean that you don't deserve an empowered birth. So I am committed to you having an empowered birth, and this is the way to do it, is to confidently say no and to follow the empowered birth method as I teach it. Take notes. If you have any questions, the best way to get them answered is by reaching out at hello@empoweringmomsbirth.com, and either myself or one of my team members will get back to you within 3 to 5 business days. If you are an Empowered Birth Community subscriber, then what happens is that you'll get more support within 1 to 2 business days, because priority first goes to our premium coaching clients and our students, then our self-study students who are going through your Empowered Birth Academy and are getting email support, and finally to the Empowered Birth Community newsletter subscribers who hit reply to any email from me. And then that basically allows us to know, oh, this is a subscriber, this is important, and we are going to respond to those faster. You can also put your information inside of the comments of the videos. I don't mind that. You can share your stories. If you have had some success with the empowered birth method, of course I want to hear about that. And if you had insights before even finding the empowered birth method that confirms a lot of what I'm teaching, then I love to hear that as well. Because how I came to this was that I drew on ideas from social psychology, and I combined that with what I learned from Dawn Thompson of Improving Birth and Birthify, because she was really the OG. And when I learned about what was going on in the medical system and all of the difficulties that birth workers had in getting that advocacy information out there for moms and the struggles of moms, I was like, oh, there's a gap here. And when I saw that gap, that is what the empowered birth method basically fills. So instead of having natural birth or bust, we also have the ability to call in medical support when we need it. So you say no, and then you draw your hard lines in the sand. This is what Jenny did as well. And you can read more about her story inside Your Empowered Birth, and there's a little bit more inside the Start Guide on my website. So once you have confidently got that vision of just saying no, like I've taught all of my clients to do, and you have anchored that inside of you, that really, really good feeling of like, oh, I can say no and it'll be okay. And even if a fear comes up, what's going to happen is that I've got a backup plan for this, and it will still be okay. And maybe I'll say yes to this, but I won't say yes to the next thing. And I'll just keep going down that path. It's like, do I need to cross this line yet? No, I don't. Okay, it's still a no. It's still a no. I still don't need to do it because I'm not afraid. They're afraid. I'm not afraid. They're worried. I'm not worried because I've got my plan. And when you have that plan, you're ready for the next step. Okay, so the next step of confidently saying no is that you need to have people who are going to be in your corner. Because it's one thing for you to say no, but when everybody is against your no, it is so much harder for you to keep that resolve, because the doubts start to come in, the fears start to come in, and there's nobody else saying, hey, you know, I know they're trying to scare you, but it was actually okay for me. This is where the mom groups are helpful. This is where having other moms in a community is helpful. And this is where having a coach and your partner on board and a doula is incredibly valuable to you. Having a care provider that's also already on board is incredibly valuable. But in order to get your care provider on board, because they're the medical system and they've seen nothing but problems arise, because they don't see true natural birth, they can't really support it if they've never seen it. What you need to do is you need to have your outside support system. So this is why part of my 5-pillar system is that you need to have the right support. If you want to know more about that, go and check out some of my other videos where I talk about your partner advocating for you and hiring a doula. You might also want to check out the videos I did on mom groups, because some mom groups are great and they can reinforce the idea that you can say no, and others, not so much. So make sure that you're also pulling from those resources. These master classes are not standalone master classes. They are not, here's a topic, now buy my course. These are ongoing. That is why it is the do-it-yourself path. So again, if you are going to do the do-it-yourself path, make sure that you are watching every single master class and taking notes, because these all tie in. You cannot just go and pick and choose and cherry pick with the do-it-yourself method, because everything within the empowered birth method is connected. That is why self-study exists. That's why your Empowered Birth Academy exists, and you get everything with your Empowered Birth Academy. Plus, you also get one coaching call with me. It's completely complimentary. Technically, what you are paying for is for that call and for the email support as you are going through the course. So by getting that one-on-one support through email and through that one coaching call, you are basically going to be able to do the same thing that my clients did when they were working with me every single week. And they also had me on WhatsApp. And I would be sitting there talking to them, and they'd be like, okay, I just got back from my appointment with my care provider, and they said this, it kind of freaked me out a little bit. And can we work through that? And I'm like, yes, we can absolutely work through that. We can work through that before our scheduled call, or we can reschedule the call and do it now. Or if you want, I'll just talk to you on the phone for a little bit on WhatsApp, and we'll just do that. Or I'll text you back and forth. I'll give you some resources. This is why my premium coaching is as pricey as it is. And it's also why I don't take on more than 1 to 2 clients per year, sometimes less than that, depending on what I'm doing. This is also the highest level of transformation. So understanding that, you are getting everything in these master classes. So I really, really hope that you are taking notes right now. And I really hope you're also making notes of other videos that you're going to want to watch if you haven't already seen them. And if you do have any questions, you ever get stuck and you're like, well, where do I go from here? And you said something about this, and can you expand on that? Please reach out to our team at hello@empoweringmomsbirth.com, because, I'm putting out all of this information. I have over 10 years of experience in the birth community, even more experience when it comes to social psychology, social dynamics. I understand even the consumer dynamics for selling and business, because it's all tied together. Part of the empowered birth method is becoming a birth consumer, and confidently saying no is the same idea as if you were a consumer and you had a really pushy salesperson. So I'm giving you all of the tools that you need. So recognizing that if you were shopping and somebody was trying to get you to buy something, but you also had a really savvy friend next to you who knows all the bargains, and they're like, actually, that's not a really good deal. They're trying to get you to spend all this money over here, but um, how about we just go and tell them we're coming back. Say, okay, yeah, we'll think about it, put it on hold, and we'll come back if we want it. And then you go somewhere else. Now you're out of that pushy sales environment. You might still come back and get the item if you're thinking, actually, I really want it there because there's also this other feature that these other things don't have, and I want to come back. Same thing with care providers. Like, one of the things I teach my clients again is that you don't just go and hire just whatever care provider says that they will support natural birth. You shop around. Same thing with the doula. Same thing with childbirth classes. You don't impulse buy, because when you impulse buy, you can end up in those traps. So by saying, okay, you know what? I think we're going to think about it. And the key is we, because your partner is going to be on board. on this. Even if you went to appointments alone and you come back and you're talking to your partner, and you're like, well, they said this, and your partner is on board and they're not siding with the doctor. Or you go on the mom groups, it's like, my doctor said this. This is where the mom groups again are helpful because they're like, your doctor is full of crap. And I've sat with my clients and they have even said to me things like, you're right. I went to that appointment and they said exactly what you said they were going to say. But because I knew that they were going to say what you told me they were going to say, it didn't upset me. And we'd also practiced them saying no to me and trying to coerce me and me standing in my power. And we practiced that. And I had a really great appointment. In fact, one of my clients, Rebecca, who you can read about inside Your Empowered Birth, had that experience where she was like, I don't know if I can confidently say no to this. But because her partner was on board, and because she had me in her corner, and because she also had the rest of the empowered moms in her corner, we were cheering her on. And so she came back from that appointment. She's like, I said no. And it was great. So that leads to step 3, actually saying no. And the way to do this is simple. Now that you have this idea in your head of when you're going to cross that line and when you're not, and you know how wonderful it's going to be to have the freedom to just say no, and you have people backing you who are going to clap for you when you say, I did the thing, I said no, and they just took the no. Like, you've got that. You've got your cheering squad, you've got your partner, you've got your coach, you've got your doula, you've got your empowered mom group, whoever it is in your corner. So you go in and you're telling your care provider, I've thought about it and I'm going to say no right now. I'm declining that. I don't see any need to do that right now. Now, if you're in your confident power and your care provider is not a category 5, let me be clear on that. They can't be a category 5 because category 5s hate the word no, and they hate it when you're in your power. And they will absolutely react in the way that a category 5 is typically going to react, which is to try to scare you, push a button on you to get you to agree to the no. But those buttons don't work because you have the empowered birth method in your pocket and you've deactivated those buttons using the method to get past fear, and you have your backup plan. So you're like, oh yeah, if that thing happens, oh, I've got a backup plan for that. And then they're like, ooh, you think you know everything. Well, what about this? Yeah, no, I'm not even worried about that. Oh, okay, that button doesn't work. What about this one, this one, this one, this one? Well, if you don't do what I say, I am not going to support you. I'm firing you. Okay. So that's how you deal with the category 5. It's like you are just so in your power that you ignore all of the fear mongering. But if it is a care provider who is not a category 5, there are 4 different types of fears that they may be dealing with, sometimes more than one. And if they're dealing with more than one, you just want to find out, okay, where is that line for them? What are they really afraid of? You're still saying no, but they're bringing up a concern, which means they're afraid. They haven't seen something. They don't know that there's another possibility. So you can be like, yeah, I hear your concern. And I have thought about that. And if that happens, then I might change my mind. But for now, I don't see that happening. So until something actually changes, this is my plan. And you keep bringing them back to that beautiful birth vision. And if you want to know more about that, you can always reach out to me, hello@empoweringmomsbirth.com. You can go and read the start guide, empoweringmomsbirth.com/start guide. You can go and get your Empowered Birth Academy. You can even just watch some other videos where I talk about this. Because again, as I said, these deep dive masterclasses are designed for you to take notes, for you to do it yourself, and not worry about a paywall blocking you from the information that you really need. Information is free. You only pay for access to me. And if you are doing the do-it-yourself path, then all I ask is that you pay it forward. So now to recap on confidently saying no. The first thing you need to do, of course, is know that you can say no. Now, if you've done all of your research ahead of time and you already know that you're saying no for a good reason, you don't have to bring any of those articles, as I said, to your care provider. It won't do any good. It also won't do any good for partners. It won't do any good to convince family members. I've tried it. And I'm very, very persuasive, and I argue my case like a lawyer. In fact, that was one of the things that I was told when I was growing up. It's like I would go and gather all of the evidence to argue my case, and people would still say, yeah, but you're a kid and you don't know anything. And even though you're sending all of this evidence, we're still saying no because we're the grown up and we get to decide. So the thing is, you're not a kid. They don't get to decide for you. And I don't even care what laws are in place. I don't even care what attitudes of society might be saying. The fact is like, you are able to birth your baby with or without permission. You are able to say no. Now, depending on where you live, this can be a little bit more difficult, and there's some finesse that has to happen, which is why the empowered birth method is versatile. It's why the empowered birth method also incorporates a lot of psychology into it. And it's why my clients pay me to help them, especially in areas where there's certain countries that are of a certain, I would say, religious affiliations with a certain mindset that restricts women's choices, including home birth, including being able to get certain herbs across the border. And even in that case, I have been able to turn that around without naming any names or naming any of those countries. So the fact is that when you understand the psychology of it, and you understand how physiological birth works, and you understand what is to be traded in if you choose the medical route, and you understand advocacy, then you can tie it all together. And that is why, as I said, you need to be able to start with your birth vision. So if you don't have your birth vision yet and you haven't worked through your fears yet, that is where you need to start first. Before you confidently say no, you need to have your birth vision and you need to have made your decisions ahead of time. If you want those workbooks, all you have to do is email hello@empoweringmomsbirth.com, and someone on my team or myself will give you those workbooks. If they are not already inside of the Empowered Birth Toolkit, that is how you get access to them, or through your Empowered Birth Academy. If you're like, you know what, I just want to get everything, and then if I need extra help, I just can go back and forth, because then you become priority as a student. So whatever you want to do, just remember, you need that birth vision first. You need to have got past your fear first. And then you're like, what would it be like to say no? And you anchor that vision in. You can even imagine your care provider agreeing and being like, okay, yeah, if something changes, let me know. However, I will do things your way. You can actually do that. You can envision your care provider saying yes. And once you've anchored that in, the next step is getting your cheering squad, because you're going to need it. Because what if that person who seemed to be supportive, or maybe it's a colleague within there, your care provider is like, you know, I'm on board with this, but I'm the only one in my entire practice, even in the hospital, that would allow this. And if I'm not available, like, what happens? That can put fear on you unless you have your backup. So having the backup support, it's like, you know what? Even if we get somebody else, I got your back. That's where the doula comes in. That's where your partner comes in. It's like, you know what? Bring it on. Even if they try something, I got you. If your doula is not available, because that sometimes happens, you want your partner to still be able to advocate for you. Go back and watch some of my other videos about properly getting your partner to advocate for you, because it's not as simple as having them just read a bunch of books. That does not work. So then the last one, of course, is that when you're confidently saying no, you need to know what it is that your care provider is really saying no to. Are they saying no because they feel like they are in charge and how dare you question them, and they just want to do what they want to do, and they are going to try to do anything they can, press any button to get you to agree because they do not like that pushback, as they call it. They feel you are disrespecting them by not doing what they say. Category 5s really have this idea about respect, and it doesn't go both ways. But if they are more categories 1 through 4 with their fears, that is something you can work with. Those are the care providers we want in the system. Those are the ones that are so burned out. And usually they're like, you know what? I just wish my client knew this. I wish my client knew how to read between the lines of what I'm saying and said no to me anyway. Because if they say no, now I'm off the hook. Because legally, your care provider may have to say things in a certain way, and they have to tell you all of the bad things that can happen, because if they don't, they're now held liable. But it can sometimes seem like fear-mongering, but there's a difference. And you need to recognize it through the energy of what they're really putting out. And the empowered birth method, again, is how I've been able to do this, because a lot of what I teach on finding which care providers are going to be supportive and which are not come from my experience dealing with people that were also category 5 in other areas of my life. Bosses, partners, family members, friends, those people that really took advantage or scared me or threatened abandonment, threatened punishment. That kind of energy is so rampant in maternity care that, yeah, it's scary to say no. It's absolutely scary to say no. I am not at all blaming you for being afraid to say no. But now you have the empowered birth method. And if you want to go deeper with that, you know how to find me. You know how to ask your questions. Just email hello@empoweringmomsbirth.com. Somebody on my team or myself will support you. I am committed to you having an empowered birth, because when you have an empowered birth, you're an empowered mom for life, and no one can take your power away from you again. So thank you so much for watching. If you found this valuable, please like, share, subscribe to this channel, pay it forward. If you are doing the do-it-yourself path, that is the best energetic exchange for the level of information that I have given today, the level of information that I continue to put out. If you have any questions of other things you would like to learn about in this topic, you can put it in the comments. You can send an email out to my team if you have a specific question that you would like to have answered. And that will tip me off to go deeper with this, because this is one of my favorite topics to go into, because confidently saying no when I used to be terrified to say no is probably the biggest breakthrough I ever had. It is when I recognized that I had all of the power in my birth. And once I learned that, everything in my life got better. I am not afraid to say no. I am not afraid to hold a boundary. I'm not afraid of people leaving me, and I'm not afraid of people trying to punish me. In fact, a lot of the things that happened after my birth, I applied all of the information and everything that I learned in the birth space to other areas of my life. And that is why I say, when you have an empowered birth, you are an empowered mom for life. So if you love this, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, because that boosts the algorithm. That helps more moms find us, because I am committed to you having an empowered birth. I'm committed to every mom having an empowered birth. Every birth can and should be a beautiful, empowering experience. It is your initiation or reinitiation into motherhood. You deserve it. And Yeah, just keep following this because next week I'm going to go into a deep dive on assessing risk, which is another one of those fear-mongering topics that gets you thinking, well, what if I have complications? What if this happens? Can I still say no? And I'm going to tell you some stories about some moms who had these complications and variations of their pregnancies. I'm giving you a little bit of a tip here and what this did for them with the empowered birth method. And I'm going to teach you all of those secrets in the next video. So again, make sure you're watching these deep dive master classes. I drop one every single week and follow. Go to empoweringmomsbirth.com/start guide if you want to know the empowered birth method. And make sure that you also reach out if you ever have any questions. Because again, I am here for you and I want you to have an empowered birth. You deserve it. You don't deserve to feel like you can't say no to your care provider. There is a way to do it confidently. You can always change your mind. And when you do that, you know that you're changing your mind for your reasons, not for theirs. So thank you again for watching. Have a happy empowered birth journey, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.